Hi, everyone. It's Maria Recruit here today. We are in June 2023, and let's talk about what's going on in real estate. And yourself as an investor, are you finding it difficult to find good properties? Are you finding it difficult to get good financing? Of course, the interest rate keeps going up and up and up. Like no one, I don't know how people can even afford to purchase any property. And if you're stuck with a lemon of a property, that's when you're in real trouble. So I'm going to ask all of you to like, subscribe, and share this video. You'll find it on Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, on my website, Real Wealth Real Estate. Please, by all means, join me today. I have a wonderful guest. I have Naftaj Jandok from Toronto, who's going to fill us in on what is actually going on in the real estate world in Canada. Welcome to my show.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing this enormous amount of knowledge and experience you have with fellow Canadian investors. And you have been one of those person in Canada who intend to share so openly and so frequently. You're educating many investors not to make those mistakes what we might have made.
Yeah, that was my intention. I've been in real estate 23 years, but I know you've been in it for how long now, Naftaj? Share
But
it with
45 years.
I'm halfway there. I'll never catch up. I'll never catch up, Naftaj.
Well, you're only sweet 16. I'm 67. So,
There you go. There you go.
all
So,
right.
so tell me, Navtaj, what is it that you're seeing out there? Share with us what you're seeing with the investors.
As a matter of fact, there are two type of things happening right now. There is something we call distress real estate. So there's nothing to do with the real estate. It's more or less I should rephrase it. It's about distressed sellers. A lot of Canadian so-called real estate investors, some are so-called first-time home buyers. They got in the business or got their first house, and all of a sudden the interest rates are gone up 8 or 9 times, and some of these first-time home buyers took a fast exit within a year, and that number is phenomenal. It's a good thing they did because they were unable to maintain, or they will not be able to maintain. They were going to lose the home to the bank and repossession.
Mm-hmm.
The second part is distress owners, distress speculators or investors, you can call them. Those are people who have never taken any basic training or education, and they are investing millions of dollars without any basics of fundamentals. Now, everything is good, but just like Warren Buffett said, when the thing goes down, then you know who was swimming naked. When the top
That's right. Yes.
goes down, now the tide is going down, and now we are finding a lot of so-called speculators are over leveraged, and now they have piece of properties, and 36% of properties which are owned by investors in Toronto are running in a humongous negative cash flow each
Mhm.
month.
Yes.
Now the drain is on, and drain is fully open, it's not tipping. And that's the unfortunate part of it. The second thing is, which is very unfortunate, what's happening with them. The banks have no mercy, and the banks have different ball game altogether. Now, banks are saying, listen, banks have the new approach: extend and pretend. What the banks are doing? Banks are saying, hey, listen, if you got a mortgage, great. You're defaulting, don't worry. Why don't we extend your amortization? If you have 20 years, let's make it to 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not a good approach either. Now, all of a sudden, homeowners who are going to 20 to 40 years, they're going to be paying millions of dollars extra interest. The property will not be paid off in 20 years. Now the property will be paid off in 40 years. It's a quick band-aid solution, but
Mm-hmm.
for the long term, it's a disaster. Now people are holding on to it. It has a strong emotional value to it. It's a security. And now we are saying there's a crunch and so on. So the problem is pretty enormous. And for investors, they have to be extremely careful. Just like the banks do the stress test,
Mm-hmm.
every investor should do the stress test. Say, listen, Can I afford this property if the interest rate go to 8%? Can I afford to have the property empty or tenant and pay rent for 6 months? Can I afford to pay rent without losing sleep? Not only that, the the rents are gone pretty high, which is kind of good news for investors, but it's bad for the renters because of demand and supply. As a matter of fact, there was an article recently that somebody was renting a solarium, where we mostly people have the sun, for $1,200 a month. There's no privacy and there's no heat.
Oh
It's
my.
a solarium in Toronto, and the news goes bad to worse though. But on
Mhm,
the other hand, the distress owners are piling up like crazy. Bankruptcies are up, credit card defaults are rising
mhm,
like crazy,
mhm.
and personal loans are going crazy, and Canadians are getting more and more in debt.
Yes, I agree. I certainly read the newspapers. I'm on a lot of landlord forums. I'm going to throw something on top of it all is that a lot of landlords have bad tenants that aren't paying anything. So these poor landlords are going to lose their property through foreclosure or whatever else is going to happen. Certainly, the Landlord and Tenant Board or the LTB is not on the side of the landlord because no one can expect you as an owner to carry a business forward without getting paid.
Well,
Yet the landlords are expected to do this, Navtash.
yeah. Well, here's something on the side note. If your tenant owes you more than $50,000, now you don't have to go to LTB. Now you have to go to Superior Court of Justice.
Mm-hmm,
That's an extra expense. I
mm-hmm.
know many landlords, so-called landlords, they did not vetted their tenants properly.
Yes.
Now these tenants have been there and they owe them more than 100,000, 75,000, and now they do not know. They're still waiting and they're learning. The unfortunate part of it that most of the people are doing it by trial and error.
The wrong thing to do in 2023. I mean, when I started 23 years ago in 2000, the laws were still on our side and the tenants were good tenants. But now we have so many professional tenants and they're teaching each other what to do. So it's not an easy time for landlords. And I know you and I are both educators. I certainly work with landlords of how to choose the right tenant. But you'd be surprised, Navtash, how very few people even want to spend the money to learn how to choose the right tenant. They think they know what they're doing. And listen to this. I had some members of the Ontario Landlords Association, which is my association. They got in touch with me and they said, okay, I'm planning on buying a house in Ontario, someplace or another. And there's some tenants in the house. Should I buy it? I said, no. You wait.
I know.
You buy a house that's empty. You don't take a chance because there it is. What you're saying. These are inexperienced. It's going to be their first investment. And they said, oh, I don't want to miss out. I said, don't even think about this. I said, it's not a race, it's a business. And you
You're
should
right.
be learning what the business is about.
Yeah. So during this time, we came up with brand new strategies. And
Okay.
these new strategies are we are renting, but we call hibernating rent. No, sorry, it's called uh, hyber tenancy.
Okay.
So what does that mean? It's hybrid. Sorry, I'm sorry.
Hybrid. Okay. Hybrid. Okay.
Hybrid tenancy. I want to stay away from landlord and tenant board. Number
Yeah.
one. Number two, I don't want my tenants to have more than X amount of time, and I don't want them to also want to fall into it. So what we start doing is something we have taken the pages from the Innkeeper Act, which
Mm-hmm.
is hotels
Yes.
and motels in the summertime. In the
Yeah.
rest of the time, we prefer to have those corporations or somebody else who rent it for the term of 9 months or 8 months only.
Mm-hmm.
And they are getting furnished accommodation and they
Mm-hmm.
are paying more than twice or two and a half or three times the rent because it's furnished.
Mm-hmm.
And the term is up, is not non-renewable. So they
Yes.
need to get out. So
Yeah.
by doing so, and we are asking them, again, depending exactly how you structure it, but one has to be extremely careful, make sure you get a
Mm-hmm.
proper legal advice from the
Mm-hmm.
person who specialize in these type of things,
Yes.
and then you start working on it. Airbnb have been okay for some people, but they
Mhm.
have earned really some bad name in condos market in Toronto.
Yes.
And now some of the lenders, they're not saying that openly, but they will not finance some of the buildings because there is too much parties. People don't like it. Wear tear is high. A lot of police calling. A lot of crime comes
Mhm.
with it. People just do it for the parties to whatever. But
Yes.
in Airbnb is trying to do their very best to maintain the reputation. But again, landlord and tenancy is not for an average person. One shall definitely learn first before they invest.
I agree. And myself, as you know, I've been doing short-term rentals since 2000. I've had a bed and breakfast, a cottage rental, and I've also done regular rentals as a furnished rentals. So I was one of the few that was doing it in the Niagara region, Navtaj, because nobody even knew about that. I mean, even when I went and spoke to a paralegal, I said, I have no idea if we went to court and you had furnished this house. He said, I have no idea how to represent you because nobody was doing it at that time.
Right.
But that's where I was able to control who was coming into my home. I'm just like you, right? I look at most things as short term rentals. And so, yes, it is. There's a different law when it comes to that. And also, you can get better quality tenants. I, first of all, put the people, they have to jump through hoops to come into any of my properties. I prefer them empty than have the wrong person in there. So I'm not in any rush to put anyone in my property. I don't care what they say to me. If I'm not satisfied and I haven't done my own due diligence, they don't get into my properties. That's the best way to protect yourself, is not let anyone into your home until you feel that they are the right person. Wouldn't you agree, Navtash?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a
Uh,
good thing, right?
yeah, apart from even checking the credit and verification of the employment, you also look at the tenant as a person who's going to come in,
Yes.
and there are a few telltale signs. When somebody's coming with all cash, that's a red flag.
Yes, of
And they
course.
just want to move in right away, that's a red flag.
Yes.
And
Yes.
we also need to have a bit of an idea if they're fairly established or if they are comfortable. What are you going to be offering them, and so on. So there are certain things no one should learn regardless.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
now let's getting back to the distressed sellers here.
Yes. That's your specialty.
No,
Mine
no,
is finding the right tenants. Yours is
yeah.
getting good deals.
So what happened is in distress selling, there are about 20 or 25 different techniques one can find a distressed seller. Instead of a distressed property is a property which needs a lot of work. It's more or less, you can say, it's a fixer-upper or handyman special. Well, those properties are great. You need to get a building permit, and all the stuff is expensive. It takes about 6 months to fix any property, provided you got a reasonable good contractor, and you must follow the local law. And anything what you do is much easier to get a building permit. Of course, it takes a bit of time, and you do it within the law, and then you're peaceful. And there are new opportunities available. I heard something from the grapevine, and one has to verify with the city. City of St. Catherine will allows you to have two basement apartments,
Okay.
and that's a good part of it. Now, when we get back to distressed seller is a person who got themselves into a situation where they have a trouble financially and they need to get rid of it. They might be facing something to do with, even from time to time, some situations where they got too much on the plate and they need to get rid of it. And they're willing to lose money. And not only that, some of them, they got themselves a headache and they want out.
Yes.
Now, let's talk something which is the most interesting one. Recently, we got a couple of phone calls, and these calls came from the people. They inherited a property, a cottage. Excellent. Okay, here's the
Oh,
deal.
yeah. It's everyone's dream, Navtash.
Okay,
It's
no, no,
everyone's
no.
dream.
It comes as a shock to them. Everybody thinks that, oh, I'm going to inherit a property. Great. No, 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 no. It's not that great. So what happened? I'll just make up the two names and just give you an idea.
Sure. Yeah.
Uncle Sam bought the property 25 years ago for 100,000. It's in Muskoka. Now its property is worth 1.1 million. So
Mhm.
Uncle Sam have died. The
Yes.
grandson, Jim Jones, acquired the property now, and he has to file a tax return. Now, Uncle Sam have to pay capital gains. So it means Uncle Sam is gone. So Jim Jones have to come up with $250,000, which he doesn't have. So he said, "Did I got myself into trouble? I need $250,000, which I don't have. Even if I get $250,000 mortgage, I may not be able to make the payments. No, I better get rid of the property."
Sure.
So now a lot of these Canadians are getting into trouble. They're inheriting a piece of property, which is a cottage, and now whoever have died, they have to file the last tax return, and they have to pay the capital gains. And the trouble is they don't have the money.
Yes.
And if they want to borrow money, they will not be able to afford it, and they don't want to lose it all. So they're coming to me, "Sir, would you like to buy this property?" I said, "Sure, I'm interested." He said, "Can you write me a check of $250,000 ASAP?" And I said, "Listen, why don't I do this? Why don't I buy the college? And what would you like to have? $500,000? Would that work for you? 250 for CRA, 250 for you. For you, it's a lottery." And some of them are saying, "Oh, so you want to buy the property at half price?" I said, "Well, I don't know if a half price you're getting for nothing."
Well, there
Right?
you go. Good
I'm,
point. Good point.
yeah, I'm solving your problem. I'm writing you a check for $250,000,
Yeah.
one to you, one to CRA for you, and would that work? Now, eventually, the negotiation took place, and we were able to secure the deal at a very decent discount because it's a distressed seller. But the only thing, this one, after one particular deal, now all of a sudden the floodgate have opened up. Now I'm getting calls every day. "Would you like to buy property?" Everything from inheritance, because
Oh, that's what you're finding now is
yeah, all of a sudden, this floodgate opened up. But this is one of them. And
Mhm.
the second one, which is very interesting one, is about insolvencies,
Yeah, oh, sure.
a bankruptcy. So what happened when I go through bankruptcy, insolvency, this is quite a tedious process as well. And people don't realize it, that there is something I like to utilize. Now, if I ask you, with all the respect, for the sake of having a little bit of fun here, what does FMV stand for?
I'm sorry, FM
We.
and
FMV, like Victoria.
FMV?
V, yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Well, most of people will say fair market value, correct?
fair, you mean fair market value?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would
Okay.
think that,
Yeah.
yes, would be.
So now what we say in our investors' language, we don't call it fair market value. We use the word called forced market value.
Okay, that makes sense. That
And
does make sense, yes.
that is about 30 to 40% below its current market value. If you are in a situation, you got yourself in a scenario, you got yourself in a in a spot where you need to get rid of it very quickly, and you want first class service, you want the money right away, you don't want to go to realtor, you want to sell the property as is where it is. Hey,
Mhm.
we want a discount. We are no different than a dealership where you walk in, "Hey, take my car," and
Sure,
the
same
dealership
thing.
going to take the
Yeah,
wholesale
same
price, and
thing.
we say, "Okay, I'll take it at the forced market value."
Mhm.
And this is also coming up quite often because people are going through scenarios where, through the bankruptcies or some other scenarios. That's another one. Third one, where we are dealing with it. This is again came from Welland, a gentleman who is a fireman, was a fireman for many years, retired, become a contractor, got himself a property in Welland,
Mhm.
and he did not do the property inspection. Biggest mistake.
Yes, no kidding.
The
But you know
property,
what, Navtash? A
yeah.
lot of people were doing that when the market was hot in 2020. And I'm sure you told your investor students, like I did, do not buy anything if you can't do the inspection. But everyone was doing that because they're afraid of losing the deal.
Well,
But
my
then,
question is very simple. I don't ask my investors to do one inspection. Their mandatory is minimum two inspections. First, your first inspection get done. When the work get done, then another inspection get done.
excellent. Good
Okay.
advice.
Yeah,
That's
the
good.
idea is this one, you're buying a $1 million property, and I'm sure you can afford to spend extra $2,000 to have peace of
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
and then we would have the inspection done from two different companies, very reputable companies. So
Mhm.
now this gentleman bought this piece of property, and the property is sitting on the mud.
Oh, oh
Guess
dear.
what? It's rotten from the bottom. It can fall
Oh, of
apart.
course, of course.
So this gentleman paid for 50, and now it become a liability. The building have to be destroyed, and now you're buying the lot. The lot may not be worth 150.
Yes.
One mistake gonna cost him $300,000.
Yes. Yes.
Trying to save $1,000 bucks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I say the same thing like you would say to any of your students. You just spent a half a million to $1 million purchasing a property. Don't you think you have to become educated what to do with that? It's the same
Exactly.
thing. They'll spend a half a million to $1 million, but they won't spend $1,000 or 2,000 or whatever to educate themselves on what to do with it. So it's the same thing going around in circles. People think it's as easy as these so-called gurus, and I know you think just like me about these gurus. Forget about it. Some of them don't even invest in real estate. Like, find people like yourself and myself who have actually been doing it. My God, you 45 years, me 23 years, and we're still doing it. And we're doing it successfully, right? Rather than somebody else that has, it's shiny, shiny figures, right?
Well, we don't mind ever sharing our mistakes.
No, of course
Something that
not.
we
That's
are,
how we learned.
yes.
That's how we learned.
Even though those mistakes have cost us millions of dollars, but again,
Well,
they
it, has,
came
it
from the
hasn't
world.
cost me millions. So thank God. Maybe it has cost you, but you've been at it longer, okay? But no, it's never cost me $1 million. I couldn't afford it. But a
No.
couple 100,000,
Yeah. Well, it
maybe
is
a
actually
couple
what
thousand.
happened.
Sure, sure, for sure.
So this is second. Third one is we come across here and people start trembling. Oh, I got a work order or a deficiency notice
Hmm.
or building code violation.
Yes.
And now they are paranoid. Typical example could be I got illegal basement apartment. The city gonna fine me $50,000, which is fine, one of it. And for me to redo the whole basement gonna cost me extra $100,000.
Hmm.
And the building, the house or whatever the property is having all kind of issues with the fire, health, and the safety. And now, oh, I bought it just like that. Maybe it's okay. That does not make it legal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Well, those people hit, then all of a sudden they don't realize it. They don't have the capital, and they say, "I can't afford to have a basement sitting vacant. My property will not cash flow. I will lose so much money."
Hmm.
And they have become super distressed sellers. And one gentleman, as a matter of fact, have 6 or 7 properties like that, and he's leveraged all the way up to the hilt in every property. And he said, I can't afford to keep it empty. And the city came to know about my couple of properties. I'm in deep trouble. Should I be filing bankruptcy? Should I lose them on the foreclosure? Should I lose them to the city? What am I supposed to do? And I said, well, who was helping you? Who are the experts around you? He said, what do you mean experts? I
Yeah.
said, lawyers, your realtors, you're a real estate coach or investment. And unfortunately, it's easier to blame others than taking the responsibility yourself. You're
Exactly.
investing in millions of dollars of real estate and you do not even have the basics and fundamentals. So unfortunately, certain people we can help, certain people
Yes, we can't.
it
Yeah,
is
we
little too late. But
can't.
again, they learn the lesson by losing everything and also putting a lot of people's life in jeopardy. I mean, just imagine if there's a fire in the basement and the
Hmm.
family can be toasted. And two things I like to pinpoint to you for your listeners. It's
Hmm.
very important that you pay attention to these 2 points. Number one, there are two authorities in Canada which can shut down any property without going to the court. Number one, fire department have the authority. If
Yes.
they feel the property is not safe, and they can have the authority to shut down. Number two authority is the health, and they feel that this property should not be occupied, is not safe enough, the property can be shut down. For
Hmm.
example, a lot of people have basement in the bedroom, there's no window, or the height is very little, and there's not enough circulation, or whatever the reasons are, and it's not safe.
Yes, of course.
These have it, and people don't realize it. These authorities do not really care. They have the job to do, they have obligation to
Mhm.
do, and it's not only for your safety, also the safety of your neighbors.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you've got a point there. Good point.
Exactly. And you don't have to become a gouger or greedy landlord, because to taking every single cent. Hey, provide a
Mhm.
decent accommodation, charge a decent rent. It's a fair
Mhm.
game. Next thing, I also want to talk to you about people who are behind mortgage payments. Funny enough that a question being asked, especially let's say in Ontario, you ask 100 people, 100 investors, realtors, mortgage brokers, say, how many days you have to be behind before the bank can pull the plug on you? And people say, 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever. Hello, you got a mortgage, you do not know that? You even, oh, but nobody ever told me. Okay, but you're an investor, you're a realtor, you are a mortgage broker, you are a lawyer. And people say, well, I don't blame any of them. It's your responsibility. You have taken the loan. You should be aware of it. You have taken the mortgage. You should ask this tough questions. And
Yes.
one part, this one, the moment they receive a letter, and they all of a sudden they started calling me, hey, Naftar, Naftar, can you help me, save me? What happened? Oh, I missed a mortgage payment. So what I got? I got a nasty letter. And the letter says very clearly, what does that say? Pay up or get sued. I can't go to sleep at night. They're gonna sue me. Not
Yeah.
only am I gonna lose my home, but they're gonna sue me. And that's not a good feeling. And
No,
now,
certainly isn't.
yeah, so these are the super distressed sellers. And they say, I wanna get out. Okay, just pay me what I paid. I don't really care about equity. I don't want to get sued.
Mhm.
People have nightmares.
Yeah, of course.
And then they put their own family, their own children, their own spouses through difficult time, not realizing the very basic and fundamentals.
Yeah, I know.
Learning before you invest in real estate, learn at least the basic from experts who are local, just like Maria.
Mhm.
At least have the basics covered. Don't just go blindfolded. Real estate is not going anywhere. Once you're a fully well educated professional real estate investor, you will do 10 times better.
I agree 100%. I remember my father, who was an investor too, he says, don't fall in love with any house and don't listen to the real estate agents. There's always a better deal around the corner, he says, like you're not the last train, on the track. It's gonna come around again. So, when you're ready, the deals will come. It'll show up.
And the next distress point I'd like to mention to you, which is I call super greed, and people start speculating and they're trying to leverage. And sometimes it's okay to have enough equity in the house.
Hmm.
It's not always okay to keep pulling the money out. It's okay to be in the safe zone. And
Yeah.
it's okay to have a stress test. Now, for example, a couple of investors I came to know, I don't call them investors, I call them speculators. They bought one
Hmm.
condo and they put the money out, bought second, third. Now they bought six properties or five properties.
Hmm.
And the one happened is one tenant defaulted. It has a ripple effect on all six properties. One tenant created this person who had almost built about $1 million equity, and he ended up filing a bankruptcy.
Yeah.
One bad tenant.
Now
Now,
that's the crazy stuff that can happen now, Taj, and oftentimes that's the reason the young investors get out of the business because they got one bad tenant and they didn't have enough money to hold on or to do whatever they needed to do. And now I think it's even worse now than it was
exactly.
when I first started 20 years ago, 23 years ago, I should say. Yes, absolutely.
So I have another scenario here, and this is a
Okay.
family in Hamilton making about $140,000 a year.
Hmm.
They bring about 8,000 a month home takeaway. And if you look at all the expenses, and their mortgage payments are $2,800 a month. Now, at that time, that was at 2%. Now, their mortgage payments are approximately $4,500 a month.
Hmm. Yeah.
Now, they don't have any money left for the food. They are full time working professionals.
Wow.
And the question is, how long would they last? How many times they can go to food bank? How much
Hmm.
money can they borrow on credit card? And what compromises do they have to make? And this is very painful. I'm not talking about this particular couple. I'm talking about a bunch of Canadians, fairly lot of Canadians who do not have a clue that the interest rate may gonna go further up. It went up recently, and now they are making in the way they spoke in the language Bank of Canada use. There is a possibility of two more increments.
Oh, for sure. It's
And
crazy. They're really trying to beat down the small landlord, the small business with the high interest rates. That we didn't make this happen. The Federal Reserve made this happen. The
well,
government made this happen, but we're suffering for it, Navtaj.
no,
That's
this
something I
is
don't like at all.
no, this is something to do with global phenomena. It's nothing to do with
Yes,
Canada.
yes.
Now we are a global community. As a matter of fact, it's hurting everybody. Inflation is number one reason
Hmm.
for it, and number two is whatever happened after COVID and so on. And interest rates were way too low for way too long.
Yes.
During my investing period, most of the time in 80s, 90s, even early 2000s, we paid over 12, 13%. When I
Mhm.
started in 81, my first mortgage rate was 22%.
Yeah. And mine was 11 and 13% in 88. So yes, of course. Yeah.
And now, because, well, that does not, this is the first time ever in history in the Canadian that interest rate have risen so fast, so quickly, 9 times.
Yes.
Now, we all become a victim of it. When I look at the defaults happening, and the cost of goods, cost of gasoline, the rent. If you look at everything, it's becoming very challenging for average Canadian.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And Canadians saying, okay, even if I sell my home, where do I go? Rents are still pretty high,
Yeah.
and it may not make sense. But on the other hand, there are some areas in Canada, in Toronto, in Vancouver, other areas where a lot more affordable. For example, in Wasaga Beach, about an
Mm-hmm.
hour and a half away, average house price still 350.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and if you can afford it, or if you're renting it, and a second biggest problem is happening is our service industry. Now, in Toronto or Vancouver or Montreal, these are the expensive cities, it's very hard to find a general labor who will work on the minimum wage because they can't afford to stay in the city.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now we have a third situation, which is creating, we call sandwich families: father,
Yes.
grandfather,
Mm-hmm.
grandkids. And
Mm-hmm.
grandkids are in the age of 30s now. They still stay
Yes.
at home.
Yes. Yes.
Now, this is going to become a pretty norm. And now the city of Toronto have announced, and so is the province of BC, that you can convert your single family home into 4 units.
Oh my good. My
Okay,
goodness.
which could be a short-term solution, but it will create a lot of pressure on the existing infrastructure, whether it's the roadways or highways or the byways, the shoppings, and everything else.
Yeah.
But that might be a solution for them.
Sure. Sure.
So the next distress thing is something we call, which is very common among death, divorce, dispositioning, and so on. And that is always there. Now we have picked up properties where the breadwinner have passed away, and there's a death in the family because of two-thirds marriages fail in Canada. These distress are financially related, and the families who are in the situation, they must sell.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
consider it like a fire sale, because sometimes they do not have option. There are too many things going on, or the property may not be in a good shape. When family is going through a very difficult time, don't expect the property to be in a top shape or so on. And the one thing which is working against them is the time factor. And they know that if they miss payments, and the bank's going to take over the repossession, it could be bad for the credit and so on. And they are in a situation, they are super distressed with personal problem, and housing or real estate is another problem. So whatever the easier problem is, they like to get rid of them. So you may gonna find during this time, you will find people are going through Families are splitting up badly enough. It is challenging time, and that creates a lot of distress, though.
Mm-hmm.
The next distress point I like to make as well, which is a pressure. Like people used to work from home if they have go to back to work, especially in larger cities. Now that's another expense. They have were saving it. Now they need to have a car, an hour and a half for driving, and so on. There are Canadian. They're trying to find, okay, if I can find a second job, can I instead of work from home, and people are having challenges with the income. The income is more or less the same, but the expenses are going up much
Yes.
faster.
Yeah.
And that sort of distress is felt all across, even though around 40 to 42% Canadian have their houses fully paid. That does not mean they're not feeling any distress financially. Every
Mm-hmm.
time they go out to get a gas is $1.80.
Yes.
Or if they are buying grocery, they realize that grocery prices are gone up.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, oh, three times or four times, or sometimes it's pretty higher. And all these things are creating distress for Canadians as well, though.
I,
Sad.
I wanted to share something with you
Sure.
in reference to that. I was on a Zoom call today, and in this Zoom call, you have people from all over the world. And this one girl who comes from, I think, Argentina, she said that her mother ran out in the middle of the night at 11 o'clock at night to get gas. And at 9 o'clock in the morning, she called her daughter, says, I'm still in line. I haven't gotten the gas. Think about that. Think about what that means, that she couldn't get gas. She was there all night long waiting to fill up. And that's how many people were ahead of her. So it's really is very, very hard times in many countries. Is it in Venezuela? It's 100% inflation.
Yes,
Uh,
you're right.
yeah,
Argentina, all those South American countries are facing almost 100%. There are a few other countries like that facing 200% inflation. And because the infrastructure, because of the whatever the other reasons are, but it's tough out there. It's not easy anywhere else.
yeah, and the thing is that Argentina, Venezuela, don't they produce a lot of oil?
Venezuela,
Does that make any sense? Them can't even get their own oil. I mean, this is so absurd, the whole thing now, Navtaj. The whole world, I find the world is absurd right now. I just
but
shake my head when I read about what's going on. It's so absurd.
yes, but again, the distress is created because inflation, chain supply, the war, and
Yes.
there could be some other political instability in a lot of these countries as well. And we look at Canada right now, we are facing whether it's a fire, and even we are oil producing country, the oil is not cheap here. We
Yeah, I
have,
know.
yeah, we also have a very depressed market for a very long time in Saskatchewan and Alberta. Now
Yes.
the market is bouncing back, but as a whole, our farmers in Canada are still suffering. And there are certain sectors, even though Canada is known for creating a knowledge-based economy, even though we have a lot of natural resources. The new product we have is called artificial intelligence. Even though Canada has a very high-tech, high-paying jobs, and still people are struggling. One of
Yes.
the recent article, I believe, in one of the newspaper was saying that if you're making $250,000 a year, it'll take 25 years for you to save the down payment to live in Toronto. What
Well,
a,
I mean, don't live in Toronto. Live in the little outlying areas. You can just drive back and forth to Toronto. I mean, that's for myself. When I look at something like that, I would say I'm not going to pay those high rents or buy a house at a $2 million. I'll go out into the countryside, buy something there, and drive back and forth. I mean, you've got to use your noggin after a while, like figure it out. You
yeah,
you can't
you're,
beat these people. You have to go around it. My father told me, Maria, if you can't go through it, go around it, find another solution. I'm sure you and I could give people a lot of solutions of how to go around all these problems.
you're right. Right now, as we speak, in the present sense, People who live in London, Ontario, come to Toronto. People live further north of
Mhm.
India, come to Toronto. People live close to Peterborough, which is 130 kilometers. They go back and forth every day.
Yep.
And these bedroom communities are becoming 100 kilometers away from Toronto now. And eventually, I believe something have to give in. But on the other hand, as an investor, there are a lot of opportunities. Opportunities exist. For example, those people who are baby boomers like myself, which are born after the Second World War, are getting older. We want
Mhm.
to dispose of some of the properties, and some of the properties are rents are so low, and they are not able to command the better price because of the cash flow.
Mhm.
uh,
Yeah.
is going to be a change, quite a bit, humongous change. We have over 900,000 jobs opening available, and we're going to be, inviting about 1.5 million new Canadians to this country to take over. And this is a transition time. But during the
Mhm.
transition time, there are millions of opportunities out there to invest in solid real estate on a solid ground,
Mhm.
having the foundation and fundamentals in place.
Mhm.
And then this real estate has been. I like to share some another something with you. Since
Mhm.
1969, which is about till now about 52 years or 54 years, sorry, average real estate has gone up approximately about 7% compounded.
Mhm.
So this is real estate is always going to remain the best investment, even
Yes.
though it has all the hurdles. As long as you take your time, do one step at a time, get proper education,
Yep.
stay on the strong ground. Don't go on the slippery slopes that quickly, that often. Make sure you are not dictated by the greed or fear of missing out.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing, by the way, last 4 years.
It is. It is.
Jumped in, whether I can afford it or not, I'm going to miss it. No, you're not going to miss it.
That's why I told them to miss what? There's always properties around. Don't listen to what the propaganda says. And it's full of propaganda. Everywhere you turn around, it's full of propaganda. I think people have become more educated, not just about real estate, but about governments, about the World Economic Forum, about inflation, what caused the inflation, who caused it. Like, get educated. Because if you don't understand that, you can't understand the use of money.
Well,
Become financially literate. Become financially literate. Find out what money's all about. Do you even know what money means or what it means? Like, I find people don't even understand what money is.
okay,
Just
here's
what
some.
can they spend?
Yeah, you're right. Here's something you bring a very, very beautiful and very important point. Actually, sometimes you may not realize what you're saying is so valuable.
Thank you.
Okay, no, I'm not saying thank you. Thank all the listeners are going to say thank you to you in a minute. Make them realize what you said. Majority of the Canadians, when they invest in real estate, they can't tell the difference. Am I running? Am I buying an investment property under my personal name, or am I running a business? The
Yes.
question is a $1 million question.
Yeah.
Now, recently, Government of Canada came up. Hey, listen, we're gonna have a flipping tax. If you make any money by flipping property or selling a piece
Mhm.
of property as investment property less than a year, we're
Yes.
gonna charge you as a business tax. It's a great news for us. Why? Because business tax can be written off.
Yes, of course.
Any income. Capital gains cannot be written against anything except capital losses. And the fun part of this one is such a beautiful word. And now all of a sudden people don't realize that. And this is one part of it. Now we were talking last night about something about asset protection. Now,
Yes.
funny enough that I have been speaking across Canada for more than 30 years in 29 different cities in all 10 different provinces. Every time I talk about the trust asset protection,
Hmm.
and people say, what is that? So last night I said, I'm going to throw something at it, and it's called sprinkling trust.
Okay.
And people never heard of it. So what
No, I haven't either.
the And I said, really? And I asked the question, how long have you been investing? 30 years, 40 years, fourth generation, fifth generation, third generation. Hello? How do you protect? And the fun part of this one is that was one part of it. And then I came up with this something else. I said, how many of you know about the stinky bits? They said, what's that? I said, don't you know stinky bits? They said, they don't. I said, okay, fine.
You know, Navtaj, you do this all the time. You pull things out that we don't know about at all, and you know that. So you know that we're going to listen to what you have to say. We may not have enough time now to go into, but I hope we'll have another
We'll
show
definitely do it.
together. But can you just touch a little bit about that sprinkling and whatever the other one was? I couldn't make out what you were saying.
Okay. Stinky bids are the bids where we make a low ball offer.
Okay. Oh, stinky bids.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Couldn't
So
make
what
out.
we do is we look at the property which has been in the market for sale 3-4 times, and people getting sick and tired. They're too greedy.
Yeah.
All of a sudden they say, "I am sick and tired. Just please take over."
Yeah.
Then we do is we will go through a realtor, whoever it is, say, "Listen, I gotta make a verbal offer first. If they
Yeah.
accept it, I put in writing.
Yeah.
But my offer is gonna be 40 cents on a dollar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm not going a single. I'm a stingy undertaker.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Love it.
shop. I shop at dollar store." As a matter of fact, my deposit is going to be $2 only. And that's a shock. So really, $2 now, and I firm up the deal. I put half the money as a deposit, or full money as a deposit. And they said, "What kind of creature are you? This is
Yeah. What kind of game are you
normal."
playing, right?
Yeah, so yeah, I am abnormal, and I'm a creative. So the next question you were asking about is called sprinkling trust.
Sprinkling. Mm-hmm. Yes.
This is for the asset protection, where you can protect all the assets. You don't have to go to probate, but the drawback is every 21 years you have to pay, and you have to
Okay.
renew the trust. Again, it's very sophisticated but very basic asset protection strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be more than happy to have a discussion on more 10 different type of trusts, how every investor must have a family trust, how the trust works, how do
Mm-hmm.
they protect you, how do they benefit you. Making money is one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Keeping away from creditors and taxmen is different challenge.
Sorry, that's just my phone. Sorry about that.
No, it's all good. So keeping it legally, morally, and ethically
Yeah.
from creditors and other people and safe. That's a different
You
challenge.
want to keep the money in your pocket, not give it away. You've worked so hard for it. I
Yeah,
agree.
you
I
want to
agree.
save, yeah, you want to safeguard all your equity for your
Absolutely.
family, and
Mhm.
also you want to do it legally and ethically and morally and spiritually correctly though. So all these tools are available. These tools are not made for multi-billionaires only. They're made for average Canadian.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
you're an investor, you have one property or 10 properties. Hey, listen, you're putting everything under your one basket. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, I
And
agree. I
yeah,
agree. I
so we're
agree.
gonna maybe wrap up here today,
Yes,
and
please
we'll
do.
definitely have another session about different topics
Absolutely. Well, you know, I used to have you on my radio show.
all the time.
We had every Monday. We'll be starting that up again. I'll be launching my own radio station, so I'm going to be starting a lot of things then. But Navtaj, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, the best thing is for them to send me a text message and attend one of my master class
Hmm.
to open their eyes. 416-409-7300. The best thing is simply text me for master class. We'll
Hmm.
send you information, attend it. There's no freebies, by the way. The only person who does a lot of free education is my friend Maria. I call her his little sister. See, we resemble a lot. I got all the gray hair, and she got all the blonde hair.
I think it's white hair now, not blonde anymore.
I
I do a lot of shows for free. It's kind of my way of giving back. But if you want to really learn something, you have to pay for it. It's lessons,
yeah,
right? I mean, how much money have I spent on my education? You have to pay me back for my education. But
exactly.
but wonderful to have you as my guest, Navta Shandok. Everyone, this is my pleasure, Maria Recruit from All
Thank you.
Things Real Estate,
All
and
right.
we'll have you back on the show. Everyone, take care. Please like, subscribe, and share on my YouTube channel and on my go on my website, Real Wealth Real Estate, and sign up for a free consultation. Here I go again, and we'll see if we can work together. Take care now.
Absolutely.
Bye, Naftash.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care. Bye-bye.